Hi, everyone. Welcome to Movie World. I'm Robert Waldman. Today the world is in a dangerous place. We got the pandemic, we got trouble in politics, and we got racial turmoil engulfing the United States and most of the world. Sometimes you need one man to solve the problem, and I can think of nobody better than James Bond himself. That's right. We're going to look at all these issues through a 1973 movie called Live and Let Die. Now, that was the eighth James Bond movie. First, we had Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Diamonds Are Forever, and now the eighth movie, produced by Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Zaltzman, Live and Let Die. Now, Live and Let Die, interestingly enough, was the second James Bond novel written in 1954 by Ian Fleming, tremendous British writer. Now, we all know the history of the Bond films. They began in 1962 when two producers, a Canadian working in London, Harry Zaltzman, and an American working in London, Albert R. Covey Broccoli, united, formed Eon Productions, Danjaq, the holding company that financed the films, and then they were off to the races. And the world has never seen anything like it before, during, or since. The Bond films captured the imaginations of audiences globally, nothing of which we'd seen before, after, or since. So, what was the dilemma facing the producers? Well, to make Live and Let Die, they went to the original actor, Sean Connery, who decided he'd had enough of playing James Bond, so they had to find somebody new. Not an easy task. This was the second time the Bond producers had to go out of their way to find the right actor. They first tried in 1969 when they signed on former Australian model George Lazenby to one picture. They would have given him more pictures, more money, but it didn't work out. Connery came back for one film, Diamonds Are Forever, written by Richard Mankiewicz, and he decided he'd had enough. He wanted to do other things. He was tired of being typecast. So there was a search. Who would the producers find? Well, they lucked out by finding the right actor, Roger Moore. Live and Let Die marks Roger Moore's first appearance, and I think he went on to do 7 Bond films. But obviously, it was difficult. The producers know they had to do something a little bit different to get the public away from Connery as the famed 007 agent with a license to kill. So the producers once again brought along Tom Mankiewicz, who, fresh after the success of Diamonds Are Forever, came up with a pretty good script. This time, Mankiewicz and the producers decided to, in a way, utilize the uprest in the black community that was emphasized through the Black Panthers and also through black exploitation movies that were popular in the late 1960s and early 70s. Movies like Superfly, Shaft, amongst others. So there's an element of the black community and black aspects to this movie because the main villain in this piece, called Mr. Big, and also Dr. Kananga, a dual role, is an Afro-American African leader, played nicely by Yaphet Kotto. And this is the first time that there was a black villain in the Bond flicks. So again, they're trying to capitalize on that black exploitation genre that was popular in Hollywood movies. Whether it worked or didn't, that's up for people to decide. But I will tell you that the movie, Live and Let Die, marks a significant departure from the Connery films in that this movie has more of a light feel to it. And Roger Moore does a good job. He's very effective, very engaging. And you have to say, people, the producers in particular, as well as United Artists, obviously knew Roger Moore as a good actor. He had already had and found global fame as Simon Templar in The Saint, wildly successful global hit for British television. The movie also features Geoffrey Holder as one of the actors in the piece, a villain, and Julian Harris playing Teehee, one of Mr. Big's henchmen. There's some great stunts in this movie, including a runaway bus piloted by Roger Moore, who had to take a crash course, I believe, on driving a bus, and a great sea chase along the waterfront. The movie was partly made in Jamaica. The boats were provided by Glastron, a British film company, making boats, I believe, at the time. And the movie, as the love interest, Solitaire, is played nicely by Jane Seymour, who uses her ability to have tarot cards as a way to predicting things that are going to happen when she's asked by her comrade in arms, Mr. Big and Kananga. Dual role. The plot of the movie, incidentally, apart from all those special effects and stunts, involves heroin smuggling done on a Caribbean island by Mr. Big and Kananga. The movie also features David Hedison, who would rocket to international fame in the late 1960s, mid 1960s, in Irwin Allen's Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea as Captain Crane, opposite Richard Basehard's Admiral Nelson. That was a fun flick. Hedison, by the way, would play Felix Leiter, the FBI agent, twice later on in a Timothy Dalton movie. Little bit of trivia on this Bond film since it marks Roger Moore's debut. He actually kept a diary and published a book on what it was like playing James Bond for the first time in this movie. The movie also is the third time that you don't see James Bond wearing a tux. He also never wore a tux in From Russia with Love, the second Bond film, as well as in You Only Live Twice, the fifth James Bond film. The director, Guy Hamilton, the man who struck gold directing Goldfinger, the 1964 classic that unleashed the worldwide James Bond phenomena. Hamilton also directed Sean Connery's return appearance in Diamonds Are Forever from 1971, and he also did The Man with the Golden Gun, the next follow-up. What should be noted about this production, Live and Let Die, is that they had some difficulties. Obviously, the actors unfortunately took ill at a time. The movie also did not feature Q, Desmond Llewellyn, the gadget master, even though there were some gadgets included in the movie. And Roger Moore does a great job with the action stuff. He smokes a cigar, unlike Connery, who smoked a cigarette. He didn't have his martini shaken, not stirred. He preferred bourbon. So there were subtle elements to try to get away from a 1960s Bond. After all, we are in the 1970s. The movie was shot on location, naturally, in London, England, the home base for all the James Bond films, more or less. Filming was done in New York City, in Harlem, and the Philly of Soul, New Orleans. That was a front to involve heroin smuggling and distribution in the United States that was done at a Caribbean island under the auspices of Baron Samedi. So lots of voodoo also mixed up in this kind of crazy adventure fantasy thriller. But there's some more departures. The good old crew, namely Miss Moneypenny, is on hand, played by Canadian Lois Maxwell, and also the movie features M, played brilliantly, as always, by Bernard Lee. Really the quintessential M, the man, the head of MI6, who sends James Bond on all his missions, with Moneypenny as the trusted secretary and lady-in-waiting for Bond. The movie also features interesting musical score. First of all, this is the first time a rock song has been used as the theme, namely Live and Let Die, performed brilliantly by its creator, none other than Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney, and Wings. They performed the song, but it's interesting to note that another singer, B.J. Ingenue, was also instrumental in playing that song, and her version of that song is done at a swanky nightclub in New Orleans. And actually, that was Harry Saltzman, the producer's first choice. The Bond films have a key element with the Beatles because Bond was referencing the Beatles in Goldfinger from 1964. And the musical arranger for this film, for the first time, was not John Barry, but it was none other than Sir George Martin, the Beatles producer extraordinaire. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I gotta give Live and Let Die a 7. I still remember that iconic theme. It was a good starting point for Roger Moore, who unfortunately didn't have a great script in the follow-up, The Man with the Golden Gun, set in Thailand. However, he would strike gold in the mega successful 1977 blockbuster The Spy Who Loved Me. That's the movie that had James Bond's underwater car, A Lotus Is Free. I think people will enjoy watching Live and Let Die. I had a good time, and it's perfect for the times. Action-packed all the way. First time, by the way, a supernatural theme was inserted into the Bond canon. And by the way, the gunshot logo, that's the first time James Bond did not have a hat. Changing times, different tastes. Good actor. Sir Roger Moore, first class guy. And by the way, the third ambassador for UNICEF. First was Danny Kaye, then Audrey Hepburn, then Roger Moore. A guy who really liked people and was liked by everyone all the time. Thank you for watching. Live and Let Die gets an honorable 7. Robert Waldman for Movie World. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you again.